Mohamed Fahmy, Peter Greste, and Baher Mohamed remain in prison facing years in jail, convicted after a legal process that featured all the hallmarks of a show trial. It was a little more than 2 months ago, Peter Greste and his Al Jazeera colleagues had already passed the 300-day mark in prison, when Greste had a message smuggled out of jail. Journalists are no longer on the front lines, he said. We are the front lines.
What Peter is saying is reflective of the environment today in Egypt and how the new regime is dealing with any alternative storytelling, independent and reflective, coming from media, especially from international media.
Greste also says if you try to understand the other side in the government's point of view, you're committing an act of treason. And that has meant that journalists have become the front lines.
President el-Sisi came into office with a clear view of the Egyptian media's job.
لازم المصريين الثقة والرضا والطموح والشعور بالأمان يبقى دايما الإعلام بيتكلم فيه من غير ما أنا بقولش إن هو يزيف حاجة لكن يخلي باله برضه بيتكلم.
He basically tells the journalists help Egyptians, as if journalists are his people that are working under him to satisfy his message. That shows the mentality of President Sisi as a military officer who thinks the whole country is working under his leadership.
And prominent figures in the Egyptian media reinforced Sisi's view, sometimes with interest.
دول ناس خنازير وعندما يخرج معير الخنزير ما الخنزير بينعر.
When the Al Jazeera journalists were sentenced in June to jail terms between 7 and 10 years, relations between Qatar, which owns Al Jazeera, and Egypt were at a low point. Within a month, however, the story started shifting. President el-Sisi told journalists the trial had had negative consequences for Egypt. 2 months later, the Qatari government said it would deport members of the Muslim Brotherhood. Since then, Al Jazeera's Egyptian channel, Al Jazeera Mubashir Misra, has been taken off the air, another irritant in the bilateral relationship removed. By last month, the president was telling French journalists that had he been in power when the Al Jazeera 3 were arrested, there would have been no court case. They simply would have been expelled.
I can tell you that this is something which is under scrutiny to find a solution.
And once again, the Egyptian media took their cues from their president, Ibrahim Issa, who had once described Al Jazeera as akin to Al-Qaeda, then declared that one of the defendants, Mohamed Fahmy, is innocent after all. In 2 days, the appeal hearing is due to begin, a new stage in a legal process dismissed as farcical by human rights and media watch groups. If that appeal fails, those following the story will go back to what they've been doing for months now, closely monitoring what is said about the case by the el-Sisi government and the Egyptian media that march in step with their president and echo his words.